Welcome to Mythos, Most Wanted, where ancient legends and myths go on trial. Here, we don't just tell old stories. We dig up cold cases buried in sacred texts, forgotten temples, and whispers of eternity. Today we head down to Australia to investigate the Aboriginal creator god Yulunga, better known as the Rainbow Serpent, by looking at its violent protection of dreaming lore. In the sun-scoured wilderness of Australia's interior, far from the reach of roads or signal towers, the earth remembers. Its red dust tells no lies. Its rocks carry the weight of endless generations. And beneath it all, something stirs. Here, the line between myth and memory is razor thin. Among hundreds of Aboriginal nations across the continent, there exists a being older than the desert, older than speech, a force believed to have carved rivers, raised mountains, and drawn the laws of life itself into the ground, like fire across sand. They call it the Rainbow Serpent. To many, it is a symbol of fertility, a painter of skies after the rain, a protector of fresh water and harmony. But across scattered stories, ones spoken in hushed tones and passed from elder to apprentice in the dead of night, a different picture emerges. A force not of balance, but of retribution. A presence beneath the land that punishes the irreverent, consumes the defiant, and seals away the disobedient in stone and silence. Tonight, we return to the red heart of Australia, to remote caves and forbidden circles, to trembling testimonies and ancient grief, to uncover the truth behind one of the oldest crimes ever recorded in human belief. The Rainbow Serpent's name changes from region to region. Ngalyod, Wagil, Kanmari, and many others, but its shape remains the same. It is said to be vast enough to cross the continent beneath the earth, its body winding through rock and time. According to the oldest Dreamtime songs, it emerged during the first sunrise, stretching its coils across the formless world. With every movement, rivers spilled behind it. Its scales gouged valleys. Its flickering tongue breathed life into rain clouds and carved the channels through which water still flows. This was no gentle sculptor, nor was it a passive act of creation. It gouged the land with thunderous intent, splitting it open to form laws that would never be rewritten. In many stories, the Rainbow Serpent is the lawgiver, whose wrath would materialize through consequence. Where it passed, law followed, and where it was defied, the punishment was harsh, and it was absolute. One lesser-known account from the Pintupi people of the Western Desert speak of the Rainbow Serpent as a furious guardian of balance and the bringer of fertility. It tells of a time when a sacred waterhole was spoiled, when men stole stone from a forbidden place, breaking apart the dreaming track. The songline was interrupted, the circle turned inward, and the earth opened. The snake saw the break. It opened its mouth, and the men fell inside. Not a drop of blood, not a sound, just dust, and nothing left. The law, it seems, was written in circular motion, and once that circle was disrupted, it had to be closed. In 1846, a remote settlement called Purukuja, built near the southern edge of the Tanami Desert, vanished without warning. It had stood for only 2 years, a missionary outpost established during a rush to civilize the region. The town had sprung up beside a ceremonial dreaming site that the locals refused to approach. Repeated warnings were given. The missionaries dismissed them. What followed was a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. One morning, a supply convoy arrived to find the settlement silent. Doors hung open. The cooking fires had burned low. Livestock stood unfed, unharmed. But every resident, 37 men, women, and children, was gone. No signs of struggle, no footprints leaving town. only a shallow depression in the soil at the center of the square, as if something massive had coiled through in the night. The Purukuja vanishings were blamed on drought, on wandering tribes, on wild dogs, but none of it explained the lack of remains. None of it explained the absolute silence. In 1964, an anthropologist uncovered fragments of Pintupi oral history that referenced the place the earth swallowed. And when she brought those fragments to the site, the elders refused to stand on the ground. That place remembers the teeth, one whispered. It will bite again. To the untrained eye, the dreaming is a tapestry of symbols, mythic threads too ancient to unravel. But those who listen to the land, who read the creases in its dust and the tremors beneath its skin, begin to see something else. A pattern, a pulse, a warning encoded in disappearance. In the parched heat of 1971, 5 miners made a decision that would split more than just rock. They detonated a section of overhang near Kata Tjuta, ignoring frantic objections from local Anangu elders. The site, painted in ochre circles and lined with hand-stamped prints, had long been avoided even by wildlife. But the miners weren't looking for stories. They were after hematite. What they unearthed wasn't ore. It was silence. Within 3 weeks, all 5 men were dead. The first was found floating face down in a water tank. His body bloated and bloomed with black splotches the coroner could not explain. The second was crushed beneath his own drill rig. The safety system had inexplicably disengaged. The third was working a night shift alone. He vanished. Nothing but his hard hat remained, discovered days later, beside a ragged gouge in the soil. The helmet split, clean, down the center, like an egg. The fourth death was preceded by a descent into madness. Colleagues described him muttering to himself, obsessively, drawing concentric circles on his lunchbox, walls, even his own palms, with a permanent marker. The night before he was found dead, hanging in a railway shed, he scrawled a single sentence on the back of a pay stub, words that would haunt investigators for decades. The circle moves when the rules are broken. The last miner, perhaps the most harrowing, had fled hundreds of kilometers south. He checked into a motel under a false name. 2 days later, he was discovered in a bathtub full of blood, with his wrists bleeding and his eyes closed. Above him, painted in water-diluted crimson on the bathroom wall, was a massive, coiling serpent, its tongue split, its eye fixed on the door. None of the hotel staff recalled that mural ever being commissioned. The mining company pulled its operations. The overhang was resealed by traditional custodians in a ceremony of ash, ochre, and silence. Since then, no further incidents have been reported at that site. But some say, on still nights, the sand shifts in unnatural patterns, and the rocks sweat. Dr. Samuel Argus, a leading figure in the emerging field of divine behavioral forensics, has spent years attempting to map the cognitive patterns of mythological entities whose actions breach natural law. In his profile of the Rainbow Serpent, he posits a deeply unsettling thesis. This is not a mindless force of nature. It is a sentient, punitive being with a moral code. The Rainbow Serpent doesn't kill indiscriminately, Argus explains. It reacts. It punishes breaches of sacred contracts. Its violence is lawful within its cosmology. But to humans, its justice is indistinguishable from horror. According to Argus, the being displays behavior consistent with a moral absolutist psycho-spiritual predator, an entity that enforces obedience through terror. The killings, he argues, follow a 4-phase pattern: desecration of sacred ground, escalation of tension through omens or sickness, catastrophic punishment, and erasure not just of life, but of memory, evidence, and trace. What makes the Rainbow Serpent unique, however, is that it does not pursue. It waits. It coils within its domain and strikes only when provoked. Argus's final warning. You don't have to believe in it for it to be real. You just have to walk where you're not meant to. In 1998, amid rising interest in mythic phenomena and psychological anomalies, a team of anthropologists negotiated a rare and controversial agreement. A sanctioned dreaming interrogation ritual at a sacred site known as the Red Ring. Hidden deep in the Tanami Desert, the location had remained untouched for 6 generations. Its stones were said to sing at dusk. Its sand held the shape of footsteps, far too large to be human. They selected a young Warlpiri woman named Yindi, a soft-spoken descendant of the site's traditional custodians. She agreed to be the vessel. At sunrise, Yindi was painted in ancestral markings, charcoal, clay, and bloodroot, and led into the center of the ring. There, she sat cross-legged upon a circle of burned eucalyptus bark. The smoke rose in spirals. For 6 hours, nothing happened. Then, at the 7th hour, the earth around the circle seemed to tighten. Yindi's breathing slowed. Her hands began to tremble. Then came a primordial sound from the depths of the ground itself. A deep groaning hum. When she finally spoke, her voice had changed. It was deeper than bone, wetter than wind. Those present described it as the sound of something vast, trying to whisper through a child's throat. At first, Yindi didn't speak. He simply stared forward, seemingly looking through the souls of the researchers. Her breathing slowed until it almost stopped. The room was silent except for the distant, rhythmic hiss of desert wind. Then, in a voice that no longer belonged to her, something answered from behind her eyes. "I am the heat beneath your feet," it said, low and ancient. The sound of stone, shifting underground. "I am the coil in your shadow. I am the law that came before breath." It was not a reply. It was a declaration. When asked why it took the living, there was no hesitation. The voice darkened. "Because you walk over breath with boots," it said. "Because you tear law from stone. Because you build where I dream." And finally, when pressed on what it wanted, the answer came as a sentence. Short, sharp, final, obedience, stillness, return the stone, seal the lines. Then the voice was gone. Yindi collapsed in the dust. The silence that followed was not empty, it was warning. After the final phrase, Yindi screamed, as though something inside her was being forced out. She collapsed, eyes rolling back. Yindi was taken to a field tent. There, a medical team discovered ruptured vessels across both irises. The hemorrhages formed perfect rings. She never regained consciousness. Yindi died 11 days later, without uttering another word. Her remains were buried in a sacred grove. The footage of the ritual, now stored under federal cultural lockdown, has never been publicly aired. The stone ring was once again covered in red earth. A circle returned. In the months that followed, the case was forwarded to the Global Divine Entity Risk Index, where the Rainbow Serpent was classified as Category 4, locally contained, lethally reactive. A psychiatric profile was commissioned, not as a clinical necessity. After all, what can you diagnose in a being that does not possess a brain, but as a behavioral model? A caution. Dr. Eleanor Banks, senior profiler for the Mythological Institute of Canberra, led the investigation. Her report was sobering. "What we're seeing is not the pathology of a sadist or tyrant," she wrote. "This isn't wrath in the way humans define it. It's enforcement. The Rainbow Serpent doesn't strike out a vengeance. It corrects. Its pattern of violence aligns perfectly with breaches of dreaming law, trespass, desecration, theft. Each act of disappearance is not arbitrary, but reactive, like antibodies responding to infection. According to Banks, the Rainbow Serpent operates in a kind of closed metaphysical ecology. Its memory is geographical, not emotional. Its sense of morality is environmental, a loop of consequences, a coil of cause and effect. In its presence, stories become maps, violations become triggers, and its patience is not kindness, it is surveillance. The final line of her profile reads like a verdict. The serpent does not hunt, it waits, and when its laws are broken, it remembers where you stood. Australia's vast red interior is not lifeless. It breathes, it sings, and in places where the soil cracks and the trees lean away from themselves, it listens. You can't see the rainbow serpent, you won't hear its hiss in the wind. You'll only know it by what's missing. A sound that suddenly stops, a shadow that doesn't belong, a place that no longer feels safe to sleep near. For those who live close to the land, the warning is never shouted. It is sung low, passed from mouth to ear, like embers in a cloth. Respect the lines, mind the circles. And when you step across ground that feels too warm, or see symbols in the stone that weren't there yesterday, leave. Because the rainbow serpent isn't gone. It isn't dead. It is dreaming, watching, coiled in the hollow places beneath your feet. And it is waiting for someone to forget the rules. Another case closed. But in the world of gods, justice is never final. If you want more divine investigations, brutal truths, and mythological madness, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Mythos Most Wanted. Your voice helps echo justice across the ages. And trust us, there are darker gods still waiting to be exposed. See you in the next case file.